Hello and welcome to Creating Canon with your hosts AJ Hamilton and nice, caring, and pleasant.
Aww.
I mean, that's not describing you.
No, that's describing
That's
somebody
describing
else.
this movie.
That's describing this movie.
That's right.
Absolutely.
But
if you were to say my name...
if I were, it would
say
be...
say my name.
Nicholas C. Pappas.
Yeah,
I think we're going to get sued for you singing that song,
What?
but that's
Why
fine.
would
That's
that
fine.
happen?
No, we're good. We're good.
Why would that happen?
But you know who wouldn't sue us?
Mr. Rogers?
That's right, Mr.
Yeah,
Rogers.
Fred Rogers.
That Mr. Rogers movie.
Yep, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. That's what we're talking about on this episode of Cannon Blast.
Kaboom!
Kaboom!
Blasting you.
Yeah.
With this movie.
With this movie.
Yeah.
This wonder.
This wonder of a movie.
With this wonder fuck of a movie.
Oh!
Is that what you're gonna say?
That's exactly.
Yeah. Tom Hanks nominated for a Golden Globe
And an Oscar.
for Best Supporting Actor.
Nice.
For this movie, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is not Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is what I keep wanting to call this.
Yes.
Won't You Be My Neighbor was the documentary about the
Beautiful
life
documentary.
of Fred Rogers. Yes, beautiful
Oh my
documentary.
God! Go out and see that.
Yes.
Well,
let's get do you want to? Let's just hop into it.
absolutely.
Ready?
Shall we?
Yay! The AJ threw rock, I threw paper, so that means I get to choose.
Indeed.
And I think I want to go first.
All right, go on ahead.
So a couple of things about this movie. First of all, I found myself completely and utterly charmed by it. Mm-hmm. I thought this movie was just delightful. One of the things that I actually found very interesting was I thought this was a movie about Fred Rogers and Fred Rogers' life, but the reality is it's really more about a character named Lloyd Vogel, played by Matthew Rhys, and Tom Hanks is actually sort of a secondary character. Not a secondary character, but a supporting lead.
Yeah.
Fred Rogers is sort of the person who helps Lloyd Vogel along on his journey.
Yes.
Which was surprising because I thought it was going to be something slightly different. But oh boy, am I so happy that it actually was what it turned out to be. The movie was written by Noah Harpster and Mika Fitzsimmons Blue, and it was directed by Marielle Heller. Marielle Heller did Diary of a Teenage Girl, and last year she did the Melissa McCarthy movie Can You Ever Forgive Me?
Right.
Can You Ever Forgive Me was one of my absolute favorite movies of last year. I thought it was delightful, wonderful, so good.
Yeah.
And I thought this movie was in the same boat. It was delightful, it was wonderful, it was good. This was one of my favorite movies this year. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the cast was fucking top-notch. Tom Hanks, Matthew Rhys. Chris Cooper.
Yeah.
Are sort of like our three leads. And it's interesting that you brought up the I brought up the documentary,
Sure.
but it's interesting that you mentioned the documentary and you should see that. I loved that I saw the documentary prior to seeing this movie because I feel like they work in tandem to tell this really beautiful story about Fred Rogers' life.
It gives a lot of context
It gives
to it.
a lot of context
Yes.
that there are certain things that happen in this movie where if I hadn't seen Would You Be My Neighbor, I would have been like, bullshit. No one's that kind.
Yep.
Bullshit, that didn't happen.
Sure.
Bullshit, that didn't happen. And the other movie filled in the context of this one in
Yes.
a lovely way. I know I've said that like 9 times, but I'm going to say it one more time. It filled in the context in a really lovely way.
Good.
I just found this movie delightful.
Yeah.
I cried. There's
Yeah.
actually a certain point where I started crying, and I don't think I stopped until the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to give it away, but there's a moment at the end of the movie that I thought was so incredible, impactful, beautiful, soul-aching, yet hopeful.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I say hopeful in a lot of movies these days.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it because I know what you're talking about. Which, yes, yeah.
I just did the action and AJ went just to make sure.
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like go see this movie.
Yeah.
Watch Won't You Be My Neighbor.
Yeah.
Then watch A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. It felt redeeming in a way most movies don't feel redeeming.
Yeah.
I loved it. I really loved it. I thought it was a top-notch film. It was emotional. And there's also a moment in the middle of the movie that I thought was incredibly brave that I don't think I've ever seen a movie like this do in such a way, which is the 2 minutes,
the 1 minute,
the 1 minute of silence.
Well, I don't know if you remember it from the documentary.
Yes, yeah.
But it's the exact same thing is in it.
Yeah,
which is why these movies are such an interesting companion piece to each other.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, the one other thing about this movie that I wanted to mention,
please,
and hopefully it's the one where you're going to go.
Go ahead.
They used the Mr. Rogers like puppets and sets to create real life versions of like New York or Pittsburgh.
Oh my God.
Or, other places. That was so cool.
And stay for the credits. Because it shows you a little bit more into that.
Yeah.
That fun transition.
The transitions using the show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah,
was fucking brilliant.
So cool.
It really sucked you in right away.
It did.
I thought that was really lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I thought. What did
you
you think?
A for you. This was a big disappointment for me.
You fucking liar.
I was crying around the same time as you were, which Nick, as we actually watched this together.
Yes, we did.
And brave, strong Nick that he is, shushed some kids talking through the quiet moment.
I shushed children. There was like 5-year-olds, and I was like, shh, be quiet.
Also, I will say, this is not at all what I expected from this movie.
Oh, it's not a kid's movie at all.
It's not. We watched it. Was a 6 o'clock showing, but there were tons of kids in there. I would not suggest kids come to this. Yeah, actually.
I think Mr. Rogers, it's a kids movie.
Yeah,
that's the connection. And
no, go see Frozen. Go take them to the Frozen movie,
which I did see, but I have a whole other.
We can talk about that another time.
I enjoyed it. The end.
Good. That's all we needed. But funny enough, the movie is based on, like you were saying, Lloyd Vogel, which is actually a stand-in for a journalist named Tom Janod. And interestingly, how we were talking about it being a companion piece to Won't You Be My Neighbor, he is featured within the documentary.
Yes.
He is one of the people that they go back to quite a bit.
He actually also weirdly wrote an article. So this movie is based on his article.
Right.
And he wrote a secondary article about having a movie made on your life.
Yes.
When a lot of the stuff that's in the movie is invented. Which is a really fascinating. I mean, if you just want to keep like thinking about companion pieces companion pieces.
Right.
That is also a really interesting thing of like to have it go through his filter and to have him be like, well, this didn't happen, but I also understand it needed to happen.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Which I thought was kind of a cool thing.
Incredibly cathartic movie.
Yeah. That's a great word for it.
Yeah. It is interesting that it does not analyze Fred Rogers' life, but it analyzes the effect that he has on others.
And I think we get glimpses of his life through that effect.
Of course.
Stuff,
of course.
But you're
but
right.
I think
it's not the focus.
But I think we do. Again, the Won't You Be My Neighbor makes these offhanded single lines said by the woman playing his wife.
Yes.
Played by Marianne Plunkett, or just any other reference, the swimming scene, just there's such interesting nods to that thing, which makes them meld just brilliantly. So I mirror quite a number of things that you say, but this is just a beautiful love letter to the struggles of humanity. I think
I love the way you put that, and hope. It's a love letter to hope.
Hope and the ups and downs of it all.
Yeah.
And being more mindful and what we can do to help our fellow man. And I know that is... I think that cynical people, and funny enough, I read one bad review on this, and it was a real shitty review. It was...
From a real shitty person.
It kind of was. But and I won't say who it was, but just go on Rotten Tomatoes. It's the only one. And, cynical people can look at Fred Rogers and see him as somebody who is idealistic and unrealistic and not relevant to humanity after age 4.
I found him.
Yeah.
Listen, I will say this because I will fully admit that I'm a little cynical. And it wasn't until I saw the documentary where I was like, oh, there is so much about this guy that I did not know, understand, and it's weird. Since that documentary, there have been times where I've thought to myself, oh, I should emulate this. And there have been moments in my life where I've thought, I mean, not exactly what would Fred Rogers do, but like, you know what? I'm going to choose love in this moment.
Yeah.
When I could actually choose the other thing.
Totally. And that's kind of my point, is that there are so many different situations where it is harder to not be cynical. It's harder not to just say, screw you, get out of my lane, or I'm going first in this line, or something like that. But truly, the reason why we try to raise our kids with good manners is not to have them buck those in their adulthood. It is to make this world a better place. And I know that I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but it's
I didn't know you had kids.
Oh, we don't talk about them. I mean, they're in another state. It's a whole deal. Okay. But I really feel like there is relevance, and there is almost a need. When I saw the documentary, I was like, God, there's a need for another Fred Rogers. There is a need for a superhumanly nice and pure person out in the world. And I think in some ways we kind of have that in Tom Hanks. If you try to look for that dude.
You know what's really funny? You know what's really funny about that is him and Tom Hanks are actually related.
Yeah, they're like six cousins.
6 cousins or something.
And Tom Hanks, I'm sure everybody's heard about it, but Tom Hanks found out about it through a DNA test on the red carpet for the movie, right?
Actually, it was not a DNA. I think that would have been...
Or Ancestry. That's Ancestry.
Because then that means someone would have to take Tom Hanks' DNA.
Secretly.
I don't know if he'd be too happy about that.
Who knows? One other connection from Tom Hanks. He and I have the same birthday.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's fun. So I'm the next Tom Hanks.
I don't think that's true.
Is that not how it goes?
No, I don't think that's the way that works. I've heard nothing but the kindest things about Tom Hanks, and story after story about like how good of a human he is, and how kind he is to fans, and how he listens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I not to say that I wish that he would go into something like Fred Rogers, or he's already played him, so that's done. But I do think that the world needs a paragon of virtue, sort of to look towards, with a lot of cynical things in our leaders and the people that we hold up in like reality shows and on social media and different things like that. It just feels like there needs to be somebody not even fighting back, but just standing for something a little bit truer, a little bit more pure. I don't know, kinder. Yes,
I would love to see. Speaking of just Tom Hanks in general, this is a different thing completely. Part of me would love to see
Castaway 2?
No.
No, go ahead.
I'd actually love to see Tom Hanks play, because I think Tom Hanks is one of those actors who's very, very, very good.
Yes.
And he doesn't quite get enough credit for how good he is. Mm-hmm. I would love to see him play, like, a serial killer.
A bad guy, yeah.
Like, you know, did you ever see 1 Hour Photo with Robin Williams?
Oh, my God, man. Or Insomnia.
Sure. I would love to see that,
just a stretch, because he is the good guy.
He is all, and I think he could do it.
Yeah. Oh, I think. I mean,
he doesn't need me telling him what to make, but you know,
he's taking good projects so far.
He's pretty okay.
Yeah,
he's pretty okay.
He's doing fine. Is that Charles Bronson's review of it?
Yes. Listen,
Tom Hanks is
a very good guy.
He's doing fine. Well, good. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. I mean, this is a raving review, clearly raving mad, but we are. I think I'm giving it an A+. Go out and frickin' see this movie.
I'm right there with
you. This is going to not sweep all the award shows, I don't think, but I think this is going to be a major contender.
Yeah,
for all
I
agree.
Of it. And actually, I was surprised that Matthew Rhys was not nominated for a Golden Globe, because I thought Tom Hanks was great in this movie, and he does a great Fred Rogers. And I think Tom Hanks does that thing that did you ever see Capote, and then at the same time there was a movie called Infamous.
Infamous, yes, with Toby
Jones
and
Truman,
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Infamous was terrible.
Okay.
And that's because this actually goes to why I didn't. All right, here we go. We're going to get into this.
Oh, okay. I can't believe it.
So I thought Infamous was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But that's because rather than find the humanity of Truman Capote, Toby Jones did a spot-on Capote impression.
Okay.
I think Philip Seymour Hoffman in Capote
did
not necessarily look or sound exactly like Truman Capote, but he found the truth of who Truman Capote was.
He embodied it rather than putting on the mask of it. Yeah.
And this is actually one of those things where, and I'm going to compare these movies because I think they are comparable for many reasons. Why I thought Rocket Man was pretty fucking brilliant.
Oh, beautiful.
Because I thought Taron Egerton found the truth of Elton John.
Yeah.
Whereas I thought Bohemian Rhapsody was not great because I thought, whereas Rami Malek did like he looked like Freddie Mercury, he moved like Freddie Mercury, he sounded like Freddie Mercury, but there was nothing, I didn't personally feel the truth, right? Because he was too busy mimicking rather than being.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because you can only put so much mental attention on personality versus the actual emotion of it all. Yes.
And I thought Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers did the thing that I love, where if you hold up Tom Hanks and you show a scene of him and then you show a scene of Fred Rogers, you'd be like, well, I mean, they're not exactly the same.
Yeah.
But, like, you can definitely tell, like, the humanity, the spirit, the everything is there in his performance.
Yes.
And he does a good Fred Rogers, but it's not...
It's not distracting.
Yes.
Or
mimicking.
Yes. I agree. I think that his unflappable caring for his fellow man
is insane.
Comes through, and I love this because Joanne Rogers' character says it about him having a temper, and they also address that in the documentary, and it's hard to believe, but it also makes sense because he is a human being.
Yep.
He is still a human being. He is not supernatural. He is not a saint.
Absolutely.
And yet you absolutely believe him the entire time.
Yeah.
But I think that's again that's
marks.
That's our thing.
Yeah. And again, Matthew Rhys was fantastic. I don't know if I made that point yet.
I think you started to, and I agree. There is a heartbreaking scene that is played different than any other confrontation in any other movie that I've seen, where that
it's a specific kind of restraint.
It's a restraint, and it's also a confession that I don't think anybody ever makes in scenes of that nature.
Yes.
Just watch out for it and bring your handkerchief. Seriously.
Yeah. So good.
I think that's it. And
as we always say,
good night and good cannon blast. Have fun in the neighborhood. Did you just destroy the neighborhood?
I just did. I'm so sorry.
Shit. Won't you knee my
baber?
So this is Tom Hanks that we're talking about?
Thanks for Hanks.